board minute meetings from the July 29th meeting. If anyone that had a chance to review those, has a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Move to approve.
Any second? Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes to approve the minutes as presented. Of course, included in board. All right, is there any citizen input? No, sir. All right, now we are going to move up the item number 8 on the agenda up to, before we recess and close, the reports of the superintendent. Mr. Gallagher.
President Montemayor and board members, at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Cindy Mecca up to the podium to discuss an update on our AP performance incentives.
Good evening, Superintendent Gallagher, President Montemayor, and board members. We're coming to you today with an update on the advanced placement performance incentives, and I've asked Renee Pentecost, our high school principal, to be up here with me. So LEISD has historically paid a monetary incentive to students that score a 4 or a 5 on AP exams. In 2019, in another week, we will be handing out $55,300 in performance incentives to students that scored a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam. In 2018 was $58,700, 2017 was $56,200, and in 2016 was $51,500 for those performance incentives. With our value of all of our kids, we would like to transition from performance incentives to access scholarships. And the access scholarships would pay for AP exam fees, dual credit tuition, including academic dual credit, CTE, and then our new collegiate academy that will open in 2020. It would also help to pay for on-ramps tuition for our students. So the number of students who could benefit from switching from performance to access, and this is data that Ms. Pentecost got together for us. This is the number of AP students who received a performance incentives over the past 4 years. And this is the number of students that we could benefit with access if we we provided scholarships for the on-ramps tuition, the dual credit, and the AP exam fee. So we would be able to reach almost 1,000 students a year with access scholarships.
Those are current numbers.
And these are current numbers, what is currently enrolled as of this week. So this was the first year that Little Elm High School students had to pay a fee to take the on-ramps course. Our enrollment dropped from 535 students enrolled in on-ramps last year to only 179 this year. And we attribute that to their having to pay for tuition this year.
So the difference in those two numbers times the tuition is over $70,000. Oh, sorry. The difference between the enrollment from last year and the enrollment this year, like if we had been able to pay for every one of those kids that did not take an on-ramps course this year, that alone would be over $70,000.
So what we are proposing, I know we spoke to you last week at the workshop, but what we are proposing is that we continue with the performance incentives for this year, the students that are currently enrolled in AP, and they will receive performance incentives for the spring of 2020 AP exams based on their score. We would also use the money to start paying for TSI for the 8th graders who will be accepted into or want to apply for the collegiate academy, because all of those students have to have the TSI exam. before we can accept them into dual credit for ninth grade. Then we would start the access scholarships for the 2020-2021 school year. That would allow us this fall to start communicating with all of our students and parents that are currently in AP courses, as well as students that are currently in dual credit and on-ramps classes. And then in the spring, we would, early spring, after our course selection in November, then in early spring, we would be able to notify all of the students who had applied for AP, on-ramps, dual credit, that we would have access scholarships that they could apply for, and they would know in the spring what they could count on for next fall's budget cycle. So that would be that is what we will be moving towards, is moving away from performance incentives, but not until the 2020-2021 school year. So students that are currently enrolled in AP exams would still receive payments for a 4 and a 5 at the $100 reduced rate of what it was this year, and that is what they had been previously informed of last spring. Any questions?
I did have just a couple questions. So you're saying it's in November is when they need to sign up for those courses, or in spring is when they sign up?
We do our course selection for high school and middle school classes. We start that in November. This would give us time this fall to let them know that the performance incentives next year would go away, but instead we would have scholarships available for them that they would apply for in the spring.
Okay, so they'll be notified that scholarships are something they could tap into, apply
Yes.
for. So, but we're hoping that even just the knowledge that that's there will help rebound those numbers as well. And then, of course, then in the spring, they'll find out whether they get it or not. So presumably, we could see a drop then of enrollment into those pathways when, if they don't all get the scholarships that they've applied for, right? Like that's, you might.
Flat.
Right.
Well, I mean, it'd probably stay flat. I think the hope is that with the scholarships, we can get them back up to the 500 numbers. But if anything, probably they'll stay flat or right around, 150 to 200, rough estimation. They'll probably stay around those numbers for next year if we don't offer scholarships.
Correct. I wouldn't expect those numbers to increase greatly unless we do offer some sort of financial assistance. Because as we discussed at the workshop, the tuition for any student is $199. The free and reduced reduction that is given by UT Austin for on-ramps is only $50. And whereas AP, a $80 exam is reduced all the way down to about $30 for free and reduced kids. So that's a big reduction. So I think that especially our students who have financial difficulties have less opportunity with things like on-ramps because there's just not as much help there available.
So is the amount of help for each one of these categories still being worked on too? Like what exactly the scholarships will look like and the eligibility, et cetera? Or do you guys already have that hashed out?
We have not hashed out like how much of the available funds we're going to dedicate to any one program. We're going to have to kind of work through that with our existing numbers of students that we have in those programs. Kind of what I've done with the money I've set aside every year for AP scholarships is I have this amount of money, and then we promote, get as many scholarships as we can. And then based on how many students qualify for this scholarship, we take that fund and divide it by the number of students or the number of exams, not students, because some students take 5 exams, some take 1. And so that way it gives benefit to all of the students who qualified. It just may vary from year to year how much that could be.
And then my last question was just, are there students that could be in 2 or 3 of these categories, the on-ramp, dual credit, and AP?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
so,
I really expect our dual credit numbers to go way up with the Collegiate Academy. And we have some more help there with NCTC because a free and reduced student does qualify for 6 hours of dual credit at no tuition cost. They still have to purchase books and things like that. So those are some of the nuances we'll be looking at in terms of when we divvy up the money amongst programs, because we still, could help those students out even though they are getting some tuition assistance.
And I did have a question. If we did not go to, if we stayed with the performance base, did not go to this, and the numbers did continue to dwindle, I would assume then UT would probably eventually lose interest in Little Elm if the numbers dwindled too low. They probably would, I'm assuming, not want to continue the on-ramps if that was the case.
Well, that's a hard question to answer. I will tell you that Little Elm ISD was one of the first adopters of on-ramps. And we have been a big supporter. We've sent teachers down to be trained. We still believe very strongly in it. The big difference is that it was 100% funded by the state legislation.
Yes.
And so now the UT raised their tuition, but the state legislation only kept the funding at the same amount. And so that's why really the tuition is double what it used to be. The state's still only paying what they always paid, which means that we're paying the remainder, the other 50% of it. So as to what UT would do with their policies, that I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I just had one comment. I think, I really like this idea. I think it's going to capture a lot more students and hopefully get them going into that. The one thing I did like this year was just the payment plan option. So if there's more that we can do around that,
Yes.
just offer that maybe a little sooner too, because I think it came out in May. And so then, we had to like August to make that payment.
Right.
But if there was maybe just a little bit more we could do is April or back it up and split it up, that I think would help as well, get more attention in, or more kids in.
And we will be able to back that up this year. We found out about the increased tuition about 4 days before we put it out. And that was the amount of time that we met. We were meeting with technology to set up a payment plan option. And so that caught almost the entire state off guard, was that UT was doubling their cost of on-ramps. And so we will, we like the payment plan option. We know what it's great for kids. We do it when we went to college. We paid every month a little bit. And so we need to ensure that our students are able to take advantage of that opportunity as well.
Ms. Pentecost, thank you for joining us for that. Appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Mika. I would like to ask Dr. Mika to stay at the podium to next discuss our district ratings and accountability report.
Thank you. And I'm going to invite Mr. Doug Severe up. He is our Director of Curriculum and Learning, so he will be helping with this presentation as well. So this is our 2019 Campus and District Ratings and Accountability Report. So in the 2019 accountability system, we moved from last year, only our district was rated an A to an F. And this year, not only is the district rated an A to an F, but all of our campuses are as well. And to let you know, remind you, in order to get your rating, it's a compilation of scores. 70% are the scores from either Domain 1 or Domain 2, and 30% are from Domain 3. There is a forced failure rule. This does not apply to Little Elm, but it's one of the things that we are asked to let our boards know about, that if a district or a campus is rated in all 4 areas with an F, then the district cannot receive an A. So at elementary and middle schools, how is that compiled? Like I said, it was the best of domain 1 and 2, which could be star performance or student academic growth or star performance relative to what they would expect a district with the economic disadvantage to be. So it's one of those 3 domains plus 30% of domain 3, which is comprised of academic achievement, and that's the meets and masters level, academic growth, your English language proficiency on the TELPAS exam, and then once again, star performance. At the high school, it looks a little bit different because they add in the CCMR, College Career and Military Readiness, and the graduation rate into domain 1. Also, your CCMR is in your domain 2B. And so that is just a little bit different about how they add up your scores to your A, B, C, et cetera. So I'm really proud to say that Little Elm ISD is a B district. We came up 7 percentage points from last year. Then here are our campus ratings. Brent, Chavez, Hackberry, Lakeview, Oak Point, and the middle school are a C. Prestwick is an A, and Little Elm High School is rated a B. From here are the domain 1, 2, and 3 ratings for each of the campuses that made up the overall rating for the campus. We are very proud to say that we have 2 campuses with distinctions this year. Prestwick received a distinction in comparative closing the gaps, and the high school received a distinction in science. On top of our accountability rating that the state gives us, locally we continue to utilize our locally developed commitment to excellence process. And just to remind you, this is our 3rd year using this. Our campuses perform a root cause analysis on their state results, and then they choose what their one thing will be for the year. And the campuses are involved in this process right now. And then they actually come to us at the end of the week to our committee to let us know what their one thing will be. From there, they talk about their strategies and what their plan is. They present that to us, and then they begin implementing their commitment to excellence. We have a quarterly review with the campuses, and then we do an annual report to the board. One of the quotes that we really like in this book, if you choose 2 rabbits, you will catch neither. And that lends to the research that if you have too many goals, none of them are achieved. And that's why we've narrowed down the focus at the campuses to one specific goal. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be unnecessary or easier? And that is something that we aspire to on our campuses, is that if we do this one thing, what will we have the ripple effect on student achievement? So we have 2 types of measures. We have our fidelity measure, which measures our adult behavior. And then we have our student data results. And within that measure, we have 2. We have a formative and a summative. The formative is campus chosen. Most of them choose the NWEA math assessment that we give 3 times a year that can measure student growth. And then our summative. And our summative is our STAR results. And we set that at the district level, that our benchmark goal that we wanted a 10% increase in our MEET scores at the campus level, and we wanted a 5% increase in our masters. We had a quarterly review in November, February, and June, and at that time, they presented to us their adult behavior, their fidelity measure results, their student measures. The only student measure that we looked at in November and February, of course, was the formative, and most of them, like I said, chose MAP. And then in June, we looked at not only the formative, but also the summative. Every quarter when we met, we would create commitments. The campus would commit make commitments of how they would improve their process, and then we, the district, would make commitments of what we needed to do to support them. So our end of the year commitment to excellence dashboard, I included in your board book. And as you can see, it's laid out by campus. Their one thing is listed, and then the measurement, and then where they were in March and where they ended up in June. And so these are the dashboard for Brent, Chavez, and Hackberry. Then we have the dashboard for Lakeview, Oak Point, and Prestwick. And then the dashboard for Lakeside, the high school, and the Zellers Alternative Center. The Aims and Goals program participates in commitment to excellence as well. The next thing I needed to share with you is our 2019 spring STAR results, and I created a dashboard that I shared with you in the board book. And when you looked at this dashboard, I gave you our scores for math. And on the left side of the dashboard for each of the subject areas, does that help a little bit? Okay. Remember, when you toggle through the dashboard, you can switch grade levels by clicking on the arrow, and it'll go to the next grade level. This first section of the dashboard shows how we compare to the state and the region in approaches, meets, and masters. And then this second part of the dashboard on the right for each subject area shows how we did compared to the last year in approaches, meets, and masters. Last year, the 2018 results are in gold, and the 2019 results are the blue line. So that will show you if we increased and how much by in each of those areas. And so on the dashboard that I shared with you in your board book is for math. We also have it for reading, writing, science, as well as social studies. I think that when we're analyzing these results, we are seeing that the increase that we saw at the district level was directly attributed to the growth that we showed in our meets and our master scores overall. We did have some grade levels, some subjects that took a dip in that area, but overall, the district, we were very impressed with how much we grew, particularly in each of the subject areas in the meets and the masters category. So I've invited Mr. Severe here. We work very closely together. In fact, we share an office, and he's going to talk to you about the next steps that we have put in place to address our areas of concern.
Thank you. President and members of the board, thank you for allowing us to come up here, because this is what really excites us in our department is now that we know what we need to do, what are we going to do about it? A lot of our innovative ways of thinking came about because of the audit. It gave us a clear focus of where we needed to go. Also in the spring, we worked on our one thing, so we would know we'd have a clear vision of what we wanted to accomplish. In reality, our cornerstones of the district is where we're going to hang our hat. This is going to be, we're going to focus on teaching the standards. And for our department, it's supporting teachers who teach the standards. What does that mean within a robust curriculum? Second piece is we're going to focus on the intentional design of the rigorous, relevant, and engaging lessons. Again, how do we support teachers to look through these three lenses when planning and delivering curriculum at the highest level? The last piece is be a part of these professional learning communities, or PLCs, so that when we get data back from CSAs or common formative assessments, we can help design interventions, we can design enrichments, so that we can get those scores where we need them to be, not just on STAR, but across the board for every CSA that we develop. How does this get accomplished? It's really a three-pronged look. It's a triangle that we look for, and it's our written curriculum, our taught curriculum, and our assessed curriculum. Each one of these areas plays a vital role in what we're trying to accomplish. And so we decided tonight to kind of expand on each one of these areas so you could see what is the written, taught, and assessed curriculum really all about. So when we talk about our written curriculum, we shifted over to the TEKS resource system last year, but that becomes the backbone of what we do in our curriculum, but it's housed in Canvas and it's utilized by designing under the Understanding by Design. We want to make sure that we're planning from the standards, looking to the assessment, kind of where they start, where they want to go, and then we plan activities or lessons that will capture the essence of what they need to learn with where they're going to be assessed at. So with that, our core content areas, when we started developing our curriculum last spring and then into the summer, we really focused on our stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1 is breaking down the TEKS, making sure the teachers fully understand what the standard says. And then stage 2 is the development of a rich, robust assessment to prove whether or not the kids learned what was taught during that cycle. The thing we're excited about this year is every 9 weeks we're meeting with the teachers in the core content and non-core content areas. And in the core content, we want to start to develop a stage 3, which is the actual lesson design. We want to start to build in exemplar lessons that any teacher could pick up our curriculum and say, okay, I don't understand how to teach this. And they could have a lesson sample or a lesson idea that could show or demonstrate, here's a great way to teach a lesson. It's not a scripted curriculum where on day 1 you do this, day 2 you do this, day 3 you do this, but it is the idea of if I don't understand it, what is a lesson I could utilize to springboard other ideas off of? Or hey, I'm just going to rest right here because I need to go with this lesson, and we're going to vet those out to make sure they're really solid lessons before we embed them into that stage 3. And that'll be done every 9 weeks this year and then finalized up in summer of 2020. And then ongoing, as better lessons come about, we're going to keep embedding. As better assessments come about, we're going to keep embedding. So revision of that every year is going to be critical. Our non-core content is one, again, that the audit addressed, and we're really proud of the work that we've done with this. Tony working with the CTE program, and then Ashley Glover working with some of the fine arts and other areas. They started this summer to develop the stage 1, really looking at the meat of what their standards say and embedding those into a friendly LEISD way. And then during the year, they're going to be looking at what does the assessments look like. Now for core content, it's different because you have English, math, reading, social studies. Those assessments come along with each unit, where a CTE class may actually take a look at what certification do you need to earn. So that look at stage 2 of where we need to get these kids is going to be a little bit broader and maybe a little bit more specific as far as their long-term goal, because it may be a certification that we're looking at. So that stage 2 will help us develop where we start and then where we need those kids to be. And then along the way this year, and then especially into summer of this year and then into the next year, we want to develop those stage 3 lessons as well. Those exemplar lessons for every course that we offer through Little Elm. The idea being if a first-year teacher comes in and picks up our curriculum, they would not only know their standards in the assessment, but have ideas to really start their career off right with good, solid lessons that they could springboard off of. So our written curriculum, our taught curriculum is really been solidified through the development of our curriculum management plan. This plan really outlines what we hold tightly to in this district, meaning if we have an instructional design model that we really want to make sure everybody uses, it's in the plan. If there's a loose or something that the teacher has kind of free reign because we trust their professional judgment as well, you wouldn't find it in our curriculum management plan because that's a loosely held idea. But what we're going to do is meet over every 9 weeks in cadres and with core content, non-core content teachers to make sure, have we given you enough of the tight so you can establish what your loose is and trust your professional judgment on that. We're also going to have a lesson planning progression. Lesson planning is different than actual curriculum because, again, we want teachers to take stage 1 and 2 and then design backwards. Plan from the TEK, go to the assessment, and then plan rich activities to go from. And this year also, we've embedded a stage 4, which is not UBD, but we've decided to add it for LEISD. And it's actually the reflection piece of how did the lesson go? I planned for it to look like this, but when I delivered it and I saw what the students did, it actually looked like that. So as we go through that revision of stage 4, that's going to be one of the components we look for is this an exemplar lesson quality? And if it is, we embed it into the curriculum for next year. Second piece is, again, looking through all those lenses of rigor, relevance, and engagement. The new rubrics that we have for teachers to truly understand that starts in the planning process and then is monitored through the delivery process, the instruction and how the kids received it. Because again, if we taught it but they didn't learn it, we really didn't teach it. So we really want to make sure they're looking through those lenses. The last piece is when we're talking about curricular differentiation, what about that kid who may start at one level and the kid that starts at another level, but they still have to learn the same TEK? Well, the first thing we need to do is actually get them to teach the lesson. Let's get them to where we're enriching both sides of that, the low student and our high student, so we're progressing each student along the way. We don't want to lose one student because we're teaching too high, and we don't want to lose a high student because we're teaching too low. We want every student to grow in that class. And so what we've really decided to do, and this comes into our one thing as a department, is we've really decided that our one thing is this idea of authentic literacy. Reading, writing, and really speaking and listening across all content. And that's where this design of our instructional playbook came into play. What it does is it provides 131 different instructional strategies that have been vetted through research that any teacher can go now and search or download or look at to say, okay, this is a good instructional strategy if I want to see structured reading, if I want to see structured writing, or I want to see structured conversations. So now our teachers not only have the idea of what curriculum looks like, but now they have instructional models or designs that they can pull up and say, I really want to see reading in my class. And it could be a math teacher, and they say, this is a great way that they can read in math, or this is a great way to hold conversations in science. So now they have this 131 different ideas of highly effective, highly research-based instructional strategies that they can use throughout their class based on authentic literacy. Also in Talk Curriculum, one thing we're going to do is we're going to start monitoring this, and this is monitored through the district level and through the campus level. What this means is we're going to be conducting our campus and district administrator learning walks, and what's really cool about this is it's a very short form. It's only 13 steps at this point, and what it really does is give a quick look into a class, so we're going to be in there for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, but look for some quick hit, high effective things that we need to see. The principal is then going to have a dashboard that they can pull up, and this dashboard actually reaches out every 30 seconds to see if another walk has been administered on their campus, and it adds it into the data. And so from that data, the principal will be able to make immediate decisions on, hey, I may need to focus on this, or hey, we're doing a great job on that. We need to celebrate that with our teachers. So they'll have an immediate look whether we're on their campus or their APs have been on the campus doing walkthroughs, or they themselves, and you'll be able to pull out those results. So what did the district see, what did an AP see, and what did a principal see? And we can start to collaborate to make sure we're all seeing effective strategies across our district. The next thing is our Learning for Leaders, and that is where we take the time to really train out for our administrators what they need to be looking for, or what we have heard from them needs to be bolstered for their learning. These will be conducted monthly for campus and district curriculum leaders. And also we've decided to focus in 3 different areas this year, that being leadership, that being instruction, and then the last piece being really what systems do we have in place to ensure that these things are held accountable for everybody across the board. So one school's not doing one thing while another school does another thing. So when you really think about leadership, instruction, and systems, if we focus on those 3 areas to get really good, we're going to see excellence start to be created across our entire district. The last piece is our assessed curriculum. And again, it's one of those things, like I said earlier, if we teach it but they didn't learn it, and they can't produce success on an assessment, did they really learn it? You know, our opinion is no. If they can't produce success on an assessment of how we need to look at it, we didn't do a good enough job delivering our curriculum to the students. So how do we do this? We're going to have looks at common summative assessments, which are developed already in stage 2. And when those are taken, then we come down and we have data talks with our administrative teams once a month. We actually travel out to their campuses and we start to talk about, what did you see in your last summative assessments, or what did you see that were strengths and what did you see that were weaknesses? And they begin to tell us what they saw, and then more importantly, what is their idea for what needs to be done next. It could be celebrations and keep pushing the enrichment because our kids did really well, or it could be, you know, we need to intervene on this sub-pop or this group of kids or this content area to ensure that our kids are getting what they deserve. So as you look at that, we also will look at our MAP results, which is one thing that Dr. Mika talked about. And that'll only be 3 times a year because we only have a beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. But our CSAs are on a monthly basis. So we'll have different opportunities to talk about different data to ensure our kids are meeting the excellence and success that we want. The last piece is as the campuses start to roll out professional learning communities, we will be involved in those. Our coordinators go out and sit in on these professional learning communities. And what that really does is they take a look at the data they receive. They look at the knowledge they have, what research says, or what they're going to do about it, and then they put a plan of action in place. And we want to make sure that we're improving where the students were. It's not an idea of being perfect. We're never going to reach perfection in this district. The idea is being excellent. As soon as you know something, when you know better, do better. And when you know where you are, take the next step to get you to that next better place. This is that last just kind of review, and I hope you can see that really even for our department and for every school, we do a root cause analysis of what caused some of this. Our root cause analysis in our department really came from our audit. What were we doing well? What were we not doing well? And now let's attack it and get better. Year one for this post-audit look is really right now. But we were really excited and really said, you know, we need to get aggressive on this. So as soon as we got the audit back last spring, we started working on it. So really, we've been looking at pre-year one, and now we're into year one. So we've really already taken a lot of good steps. Our one thing we've addressed as a department, and the principals are coming out to share that one thing with us here at the end of this week. Then we just put our strategies and plans in place. We review our processes, and then we, share out with you guys where we're going. And again, it's never going to be about perfection. Perfection is ultimately just an ultimate fail. It's about excellence. What are we doing now, and how are we going to get better every day at what we're trying to accomplish? So in summary, just real quick is, we're focusing on our cornerstones, and those cornerstones are going to carry us through. That's teaching to the standards, rigor, relevance, and engagement, and then really talking about those PLCs. What do we do if the kids get it? What do we do if they don't? Next thing is ongoing curriculum review. I really feel confident about this idea. Every 9 weeks, we're going to meet with every content area, the teams of teachers that are delivering our curriculum, revise what was done, preview what we're doing, and making sure we're listening to the teachers to give them the best product to enable success across their students. The next piece is implementing an assessment plan with data talks. Again, if we're talking to principals and supporting them in what they're seeing on their campuses, our support structure is to say, what do we need to help you get better? Continuing commitment to excellence. Again, that commitment to excellence, again, is how are we going to get better every day? Conducting learning walks, again, what you monitor, what you expect, you inspect. It's just the idea of let's make sure we're seeing kids learning, kids being successful, not just that we feel good about what's going on. If the kids are successful, then we feel good. And the last piece, and I think this is really handed down from Mr. Gallagher as he's talked to us in opening this year and really talking to us about how we're going to conduct our business, is holding higher expectations for all. And that starts with us. We start by setting our own expectations. We roll out and try to support higher expectations on the campus, and the campuses are hoping and really working hard to get those higher expectations to have better results for kids.
Any questions?
All right. Thank you.
I just want to say a quick thank you to Mr. Severe for coming tonight. Very, very detailed presentation. Thank you so much. And it's detailed because of the amount of work and planning that team, along with Dr. Tipton, really everybody in curriculum, that they put into that in terms of just the details of how do we move things forward, the work of our principals. Obviously, we're excited about the improvement from a C to a B, but we know there's so much more that we've got to do, and I have all the confidence in the world that the plan that's been put in place is going to get us there. So this, along with supporting our teachers and principals, great things are coming. So thank you all very, very much. Dr. Mika?
My next report is on the first few days of school. Today, we started our 4th day of school, and we had a great start of school. We opened our doors on Wednesday, August the 14th, with 7,797 students. And on the 4th day of school, we are 11 students away from 8,000. We are at 7,989 students. So from the first day of school to the 4th day of school, we saw an increase of 192 students. This is right along with what we saw in the first 4 days last year, which was 190 students. from the last day of school to the first day of school, we saw an increase of 146. The previous year, we saw an increase of 147. So we are trending exactly where we have been the past 2 to 3 years with our growth and our enrollment. So we expect to hit our enrollment projections. And we will continue updating this on our enrollment dashboard on the website as well. We had a great start. Who knew we were going to have rain in August on the first day of school, but we did, and we were able to not have too bad of a traffic disruption. It was a first day of school, typical. I was at the high school for the opening, and when I got there, there were a lot of students in the hall, and when I looked up at the clock at 7:41, 21 minutes after the bell rang, there were no more students in the hall. Everyone was where they needed to be, or they were registering in the auditorium with their parents, or they were picking up their schedules in the lecture hall with counselors. But there were no more students standing around trying to find out where their first period class was. So it was very, very smooth start of the school year. The same thing we saw at the middle school. We had a group of students early on that didn't know where their first period was. They were quickly met with counselors, given a schedule, and got off to their classes. And so we were very pleased with our start of school. Our elementary schools, they had Meet the Teacher on Thursday last week. They dropped off their school supplies. The biggest issue always on the first day of school is in and out with cars and where to park everyone. But we have already settled into a great traffic pattern. The buses are doing really well. And so we're really pleased with how the start of school started. Any questions?
Dr. Mika, thank you so much. Next, I would like to ask Rick Martin to come up to give a construction program update.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is always a fun part. Get to show you what we've been doing. This is just a recap of the Phase 1 and Phase 1B projects and the dollars associated with those. The only things that we haven't gotten into construction yet are the security fencing and the additional stadium improvements. We're thinking that some of those may be better left until next summer, since it involves the football field over there as well. But we're in conversations about that. Jerry Walker Middle School. This is an aerial. The pictures, everything you see here were taken about a week and a half ago. With the good weather we've had, there's still some more additional work that is taking place everywhere. Starting to really show up, shape up. A little closer to some of the steel. We now have decking. I don't know if you've been by there, but we now have metal decking on this first level. They're pouring concrete. It's really starting to look like a building. As soon as we get the rest of the fire lane around the south side of the building, we'll be able to go vertical with everything. I see that crane every time I come in, and when they first started with the steel, there were like 4 or 5 welding rigs hanging off of that crane, off the chain. And as the weeks went by, there were fewer and fewer hanging up there. And that told me they were starting to get caught up with their steel and starting to make good progress with that. Strike, you can start to see that footprint. And this is really, it's really performed well here lately as well. Scotty's Lake Lane there to the left is about 30% complete. They should have it poured out by the end of this month. They are catching up on their schedule. Again, when we walk through the site, everything that you see that is framed up there with the wood, that's all concrete now. They've moved those processes further around the site. Both teams did a good job of taking care of their folks in the field by putting up tents like this one and water stations throughout the construction sites. They even had an area inside the trailer so they could come in and get in the cool air if they needed so. So they've been taking care of their folks. We haven't had any major problems there. Football field, if you haven't seen it, it's done. We could hardly keep Sandra and her team off of it once we got it finished, but they have access to it. The track surface is probably going to be more in September. We're waiting a little bit later to put the finish down on it. We want them to be able to use the field and stay off of the track surface. So we're going to wait a little bit later and try and get that done. There's your baseball, softball fields. There's not much left out there except the dugouts and the pitching wall and a couple other things, but they are coming along. We finally have been able to get them where the soil will start to accept some of the chemical that's being put into it. It started off being almost the same kind of problem we had with the track, but it's leveled out some. We actually had some areas pass, so that's good. We're getting there. These are pictures of the concourse area down between the two fields. The one in the upper left-hand corner, the fence to your right is along the edge of the track. And that raised area there to the left of that is the elevation that the slab will go where the bleachers for the football will be placed. So they actually will be elevated above the field at that point. And that's to keep us level with the baseball field. The lower right, you can kind of see the elevation difference. On the right side of that slide is the elevation for baseball, and then you see up the hill up to softball. That whole area will be have a retaining wall with built-in steps, areas for teams to gather, that kind of stuff down through there. It's our transportation facility. As you know, it opened in July. Thank you, Clay. We got just a quick little fly around. Final punch items are being completed as we speak. They've already had buses in there. They've already used the bays. They've used the equipment. Offices are full. Danny and his staff are starting to settle into the spaces. Fuel systems are 100%. They actually, after these pictures, this was taken, the Quonset hut and the temporary buildings have been removed. This fence that we're going over right now, that's basically the location for the warehouse, which would be the next phase that you do here. We would see a different version of this just about every week at our OAC meetings, and it's amazing to see the progress that happens in a week's time. If you haven't been, you need to go. Okay. Other activities, these are over in the high school in the CTE area. These are engineering classes. The one in the upper right-hand corner is new robotics room. We have storage for the robots and the arena that they have. We can get a larger arena now and put it in the middle of that. Students can watch from the windows in either classroom, either side, or sit around. Health sciences also got a renovation. Lecture hall was completely redone. In this picture, it doesn't show the new electrical outlets, but the electrical outlets now, they're in the desktops, have power and USB ports in them, and they're flush with the top. Say again?
Is the cell service better in the lecture hall now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This was the beginnings of this new SPED unit for high school. Like we converted two classrooms or a classroom in a smaller space into one large SPED room. It has the new lift, it has the bathroom. This room now looks completely different from this. They've got it all decked out. Other activities at the high school, the HVAC is scheduled. We talked with Siemens today. That'll take place. That should be complete by the end of the year. Bond roofing, Zellers, Chavez, and Brent are substantially complete. You probably heard a little noise here a while ago. They're finishing up trim and downspouts here. Insurance roofing, Lakeside and Hackberry, same situation. Recently approved security window film. We're waiting for them to get everything put together so they can start working out a schedule for us to start putting this film at the entries to the schools. Safety and security upgrades. We're still looking at fencing, lighting, and cameras. Athletic complex, replace the football turf, renovate track and field event areas, do additional district HVAC equipment, and then phase 2 funding is expected in May of 20, unless we're able to sell bonds sooner. Any questions? I love giving these kind of reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
So, at this point, 7:24, the board will recess into closed meeting until one as moved by Texas Open Meeting Act, Code Subchapter 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. The board